Go.
Welcome to the 2021 team previews. This time...
No.
Oh!
C'est bienvenue.
Pardon.
Je m'appelle Mathieu.
Je m'appelle Brennon. Qu'est-ce que c'est?
Oui.
Hein?
Qu'est-ce que c'est?
C'est un problème?
Johnny, tele to
français,
français, Johnny.
Oui, motherfucker.
No. It is time for the Paris Eternal episode. It is the language of love, and with love we bring great tidings. I have lived too long in America. I cannot do a
You've
French
immediately
accent.
offended everybody in France because while it's acceptable to speak French with a French accent, what you've done is just speak English in a bad French accent and imitate the French.
Yeah, oui.
Yes, yeah.
Yep, oui, yes.
Oui. Let's start with the Paris Eternal.
It's a Paris Eternal episode. Let's start with the London Spitfire. What the fuck else are we gonna do?
What did you want to say, Josh?
They've actually become less French.
Yeah, they have actually, which we can get into. So
It's kind of weird.
if you pull it up, this roster, so my immediate thoughts when I look at this roster is that it is a love letter to European contenders.
Yep.
And for the longest time, there's been, small subsection of fans that follow European contenders. It's quite sad. I was doing a lot of research on these games. I was rewatching a lot of the VODs. Some of them aren't breaking 1,000 views. I mean, everybody should really be watching contenders more.
It is incredible, though, because there are more than 1,000 people who seem to comment saying, I know everyone in contenders.
Yeah.
And then you look at the VODs and they have like 1,000
They have
2,000
no views whatsoever. So I'm like,
Where
I
are they
cannot
watching?
What me and the other 900 contenders experts that now know about Dan. It's kind of insane. But with that being said, it does feel like a bit of a love letter to European contenders. Because for the longest time, I remember way back when as well. I mean, there was always arguments of NA versus EU as what happens with any esports scene. And it was always kind of the premise that EU was better as a region. The region kind of got imported into North America with a lot of the players. But this is one of the first times in a long time that we're really seeing a significant portion of European talent just get directly shoved into the Overwatch League. And they're a unique case because it's not like this is an entire team ported over like in some situations. This is a mixture of a variety of different players from a variety of different levels of success from contenders, but the commonality being that they're all from the European contenders side of things. I don't know where you guys want to start with this one.
I think I would like to start with the coaching, honestly, because I think I guess we should talk also about the past. So Paris Eternal actually had a majority European team for 2019, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the roster that they started with. And it wasn't very successful. It was the most consistent team in the Overwatch League. They went 3-4 every stage, consistently mediocre, and they just didn't do anything, essentially, all year long. And then they rebuilt and they added all of the fantastic Korean talent that they've peddled over to the Dallas Fuel. And it seems like this year is a coasting year for them. Like, they just want the balance sheets to be as light as possible, I guess.
Yeah.
I think they've kind of gone for what a lot of... I guess I was going to say what a lot of other teams I expected to do, but not many is like... They kind of realized probably, like, after they, sent all these players over to Dallas, like, can we realistically, like, win the league? Like, probably not. But... can we put together a squad that we can turn around in a year and be like, okay, like we have like 4 or 5 pieces or 3 pieces we really like and, add the next best coming up and almost like do what they did again in a sense. Like they kept some of the players from their first season, right? Into season 2. It's like, could you keep some of these players, moving forward and then go back and get some players like that are hot from Korean contenders and recreate it?
You're looking at this from a 2022 perspective.
Yeah. No, I'm looking at
You're
this
just writing them off for 2021.
No, not really. I actually think they put together some pretty good talent on this team. I actually think Avala deserves a ton of credit.
it doesn't really matter how they do this year because the purpose is to build for the future.
Sure.
For
Yes, yeah.
And, and that's, I totally agree with Matt there as well, because it seemed like Paris's model as a team, as like the parent organization, why they bought into the league was because they know that the French fans are rabid as fuck. And so when you actually go to French homestands, they are going to be at your back 100%. They are going to be just loving it. The crowd atmosphere is going to be electric. And if you have the French players also to be able to have that identity, you're going to be in a perfect place. But why invest in that this year when there's no homestands? So why not wait until next year to pick up the best French players, to try and set a good foundation this year of like finding the best from Europe, which I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that for a lot of teams in the league, having 1 year like this really helps build a foundation for years to come. So that's where I agree with Matt as well. That like, can you find 3 or 4 pieces that like work next season and then plug in some more pieces? Staying with the Korean lineup, as we already mentioned, like that was not sustainable. Like that was just not the go-to move for this organization for different reasons, right? So I think this is also the perfect time to grab some talent from Europe. Okay, well, the most perfect would have been if London weren't in the race as well. True. Because then you could have actually like just picked the crap of the crop from European contenders. But now you actually had 2 teams that were like scouting Europe for the best players in that region. But I say that because I think one thing that really hurt Paris Eternal in 2019 when they picked up that European team was that we came off a pretty weird phase in Overwatch in general, specifically when it came to the meta, because we had this like GOATs kind of meta, and then everything sort of like centered around GOATs, and like players built careers of how good they were playing in a GOATs meta or like a triple tank kind of meta. And we are not in that stage anymore in Overwatch. We're way more now in a state where if you play DPS, you generally have to know how to play most characters. Like the days of just one tricking a hero or playing like 2 heroes, for the most part it's over. There are some specialists within the league, but I would say for the most part, you look at some of the new talent coming into the league and like they're projectile players who can also pick up a few hit scan and just be really skilled across multiple different heroes like that. And so I think what you found here in the European region going into this year, when teams like Paris Eternal and London Spitfire were doing their scouting, you had this entire like crop of just like European players who have now practiced this kind of Overwatch, like playing all kinds of different DPS heroes, playing all kinds of tank heroes like Wrecking Ball, Orisa, Winston, and Reinhardt. And then you have Sigma in the mix with Diva and Zarya. And like, I think that kind of meta, like overarching kind of meta, breeded a different type of mentality and different types of players. And I think, you know, you scout Korea and like you pick those players up, and like you scout America and you pick those players up. But I think Europe was prime to have some of these players take the next step into the Overwatch League. And I think it was a really good time for Paris Eternal to start over and pick some of this talent up and see how they match up against Overwatch League caliber players for metas to come. Not only in one meta, but like many metas to come.
It's a good opportunity for some of these players to just be proven in terms of, I mean, they're going to be going up against some of, I mean, the best talent in the world when it comes to Overwatch in a lot of cases. Now, I want to just start, I think, but I'm going to just essentially brush over it being like the tank line for this, because I see Dan and I see Elevote. And this is it's not a playmaking tank line. It's not star-studded. They're just going to be kind of there, existing, and playing their roles, I think. Which, when I see these new teams that have been brought up, I want to see them maybe, I don't know. You want at least 1 or 2 pieces, I think, in that particular area for the tank line or support line that's going to be, you know, lighting the world on fire per se, or at least...
I don't think they exist at the European level.
Right, which is what I'm going to say. Like, at this point, like, they have picked up these players and they are just going to be fulfilling their roles, and which is fine, I think. You look at the players' careers. Elevo, I mean, he spent, I think, a year on the bench on the Washington Justice because of visa issues. He went back into contenders, had some okay success, nothing fantastic. Dan's kind of in a similar boat, not in terms of being on the bench, but again, just kind of having middling success.
He also got messed around from like roster to roster. He was playing in NA contenders, and then he went to play for like a bad EU not a bad one, but like one that didn't really see much success when it came to Gauntlet.
And so that's why I'm going to hold off on really kind of hammering how, like, this particular portion of the team is awful, because you got to wait to see how they perform in the rest of this team environment and the pieces that are around them, because they do have some good players, which I'm going to get onto now. The support line maybe is the one that I want to look at, because it's the one I think that a lot of people are really excited for, is Khan on this team. I've seen a lot of hype around Khan coming into the league as well. Unfortunately, he's going to be playing flex support. It's the role that's the most hotly contested in the Overwatch League. Is going to be compared to players like Twilight and Violet. I mean, it's a role that, honestly, I don't envy anyone who's coming into the league to play that kind of position. So even if he is, very, very good, the kind of like comparison of where he's going to be compared to might just bring him down a couple of pegs in that regard. I just add as well, just to finish out the talk on the support line, and I'll pass it off to somebody else as well. Neptuno is the veteran presence being added into this team, which I think is going to be the make or break point in a weird way for this team, because you've got so much green talent, green in terms of they weren't involved into the Overwatch League.
Oh, not eco-friendly.
I mean, they might be eco-friendly. They could be. They're European, generally speaking, we recycle things
That's
like
true.
that. But yeah, I'm not expecting huge things from either the tank line or the support line, but I think Neptuno is the thing that's going to bring out the best out of this team, if there is anything to bring out of them. The potential, if there is some there, Neptuno as a veteran presence, somebody who's played for years and years and years at the highest level, being up to some of the highest levels of the competition. If you think about the first year of the Overwatch League, he was there as well. This is the guy who is going to be, I think, I'm not going to say leading the team, but he is going to be that presence to explain, okay, here's how it's done. Here's what we need to overcome, this, that, or the other. And honestly, he will be integral to the success of this team overall.
Yeah. He probably will be the leader of it. Like you mentioned, he's somebody who has won at the Overwatch League level in the past, right? So he can kind of run the newer players through just kind of like how to get it done. I mean, Neptuno was in a little bit of an unfortunate situation last year in terms of like going back and forth with visas and whatnot with Guangzhou. Like, he almost had like a year off in the sense that he was just all over the place, right? Where I think he's probably hungry to just get out there and play again. But I mean, when we saw Elevo play for the Justice, like, I mean, he's playing with like Roar, who we kind of know what he is now, looking back on it, like was not the best Elevo.
How much did he play?
I literally don't think Elevo played once.
No, you're thinking of Lol. You're thinking of Lolchis. You're thinking of
Lolchis, of course. Elevo, yes,
Elevo did play a ton.
Yeah.
But
my mistake. And I said earlier that he didn't play at all. I was thinking of Lolchis.
Yeah.
Elevo though did have a period of time where he wasn't able to play last year, right? Am I just
so when I was doing this research, I looked. It does say inactive on his Wikipedia, which confused me.
Oh,
there was a period of inactivity.
Yeah. Presumably when they picked up.
Well, it was at first when they picked up Lurchis and Elevote, and both had to get visas, and then they picked up Janu last year.
Yeah.
They picked up Janu last year, which is like permabench as Elevote, and he's like, "Cool, you're Korean now. I can't communicate or practice. I'm just here."
One player, I mean, outside of the supports, who I'm really, I'm excited to see in this type of position was like, I thought Onigod had a little bit of a bad go with Dallas, but I think from what we've seen from him in the past, like we know he's a better player than that. Like he just got kind of screwed in that whole situation where like
that's one thing I want to talk about.
For Decay, he wasn't going to be Decay, like, and then everyone's like, "Oh my god, the fuels stink. This guy stinks." Like Onigod, like before that, like it was always a question of like, why is this guy not in the league? Like he is, very,
he's a very
talented.
good player.
He was very good. Think about when he was fulfilling the role for Decay as well. Sorry for interrupting, Matt, but it's important because there's two players on this team that I think had a hard go of it last year, Onigod and Tasuna. as the 2 DPS. I think Tasuna, when he played for the Vancouver Titans, like, again, that team was not set up for success in the year that team came in whatsoever. It was very last minute. And Onigod had a kind of similar situation where he was just thrown into the mix, I think, right after he's picked up and expected to pick up the pieces after Decay. It's unreal expectations placed on both of those players.
He was playing from Europe while everybody else was in NA, I believe.
Right, and even though this team will still be playing on ping this season, it's only, or at least it's aimed to be, what did they say, under 90? Or like at 90 ping is the goal. And the other team will also be on a fake 90 ping. So the fact that is like their intended solution this year is going to set Onigod up for a lot more success than he's previously had. He's going to be on a fair playing field, or as fair as you can get while you're online against his opponents. That's got to be a better situation for him than playing on 200 from Scandinavia while the rest of his team's on local servers in NA.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Go on, Johnny.
Well, I mean, I guess I just wanted to set like expectations for this team because we've mentioned all of the different roles now.
We haven't quite actually.
Well, we've got a bit around everywhere and done a little bit of everything.
Yeah, it was all over the place, honestly. We haven't talked about Naga as a player.
Yeah. Well,
I wasn't gonna grade the team if that's what you're wondering.
No, go on.
What were you gonna say?
Yeah.
Because I think when you talk about this team, it can seem a bit unrefined compared to somewhat. No, it's just like they have a lot of players, and you're like, well, this guy has to work out, and this guy has to work out. Like Khan and Dan, like they're new talents, and we don't know a ton about them, and like stuff like that, right? But I actually, when you look at this roster, the entirety of the roster on paper, I actually think that they've done a great job of building this team for some of the reasons that Bren pointed out. That like you have Neptuno as a veteran presence, but also I think the dynamic of this team, they have a perfect amount of like consistent players with unproven talent that like needs to take another step up in terms of their skill and like their playmaking to really reach Overwatch League level. So what do I mean by that? Well, you have Elevote as an off tank, who's like not the greatest off tank in the world, but he's consistent. He does a great job. And there was also an interview with Fefe and Geramace, and they discussed it, and they were like, yeah, Elevo's just like this consistent off tank, and like we love having him on the team because he can provide value on most heroes. They said they need to improve his Sigma a little bit, but you get the point. And then as Matt brought up, you have Onigod as well, who is a really solid hit scan on so many different hit scan heroes. Like he's always going to give you value in that hit scan position, and that's going to be very important to this team as well. And then Neptuno in the main support role. But then you look at the other roles. So you have Dan on the main tank role, probably needs to take another step up to like really compete with some of the main tanks in the Overwatch League. You have Khan, who's this just like powerhouse of a flex support player, just like fragging and just like loves to output huge amounts of damage. And then you have Naga and Tsuna as well, who like I don't want to say they're unproven because they've been around in like top contenders for so long now, but they have to like take that step up. And I think you have this perfect mix of consistent good players and unproven talent that like can take one more step up. And I really like the dynamics of this team. I think the scouting has been really good here, and I think with good coaching, I think this team can click really well and bring it all together and be more, like the sum more than its parts. I don't know what that's saying is, but you get what I'm saying here, right? I really think it could come together really nicely when you look at how these players like help each other out to make a great team.
That is the most important factor for me, Johnny, what you just mentioned, which is like the structure and coaching. Like this team could be good, but even then, the expectations, I think you brought up a great point of where do you want to set the expectations for a team like this. I think this team should be aiming for the mid-table when I look at this team. I think that should be their aim. And that should be the expectations for the Paris fans as well, which might be weird as well, coming off the back of that last season. I think the expectation for this team should be honestly not that great. Like, if you think about the circumstances of how it came about as well, Avala, I mean, absolutely massive credit to Avala putting together this team as well as one of the sole people in charge of the entire process. The kind of world was against him from the get-go when it comes to the inception of this team. But there's potential there. I can see it. I can see where it comes from. It comes from the structure. It's part of the reason why I said Neptuno is going to be integral for this team's success is because if the coaching structure doesn't work out for this team, it's going to be up to the kind of players themselves to try and elevate themselves up to that level. And the thing is, they might be able to do it. That's the thing about European contenders is, these players are hungry for the opportunity.
Oh, definitely.
They've been hungry for fucking years. Naga has been playing the game since 2016, I'm pretty sure. He's been in 2 World Cups. He's been looking for an opportunity to play in the Overwatch League. He has been around. These players have been gagging for the opportunity to play in the Overwatch League, and that hunger might be enough to elevate them up. But that in my mind, this is where the team should be aiming for, that mid-table kind of area.
See, I would even say though that that's too high for them, and I would say they can hope for mid-table, but I don't think that the fans should expect mid-table.
No,
I think
the fans' expectations should be low, but the aim of the team should be at that mid-table.
Yeah,
if this team finished at the mid-table, that is very good.
That's incredibly good.
Yes.
Like, that's unbelievably good for them. But I do think, I agree with you, Jonathan, that this team has been put together well. They've been scouted well. But I'm slightly higher than I think any of you guys on Naga. I think he's a really good talent.
I think Naga's good as well.
Right.
Really good.
But I think that they have 2 great talents and then Suna. And I'm not really sure what they're going to do with Suna. Because I think Onigod's already showcased that he's got a huge amount of potential. He's already shown it in the league, actually. He just was always compared to Decay, so he got a bad end of the stick. Naga looks, to me, when I watch him, as like not exactly raw, but extremely potent flex DPS player who can play a huge range of heroes and can already provide massive value to a team. And I think that if you put both of those DPS players in the right position, they can be much better than the average level of the team. That, in fact, it'll be on the tanks, in my opinion, to really elevate the play.
Up.
And even if Elevo is like the very consistent player, you unfairly then put the expectation on Dan as the main tank to like raise his level up even further. But I think it's about how the whole team helps Dan get up to that level as well.
To that point, yeah.
I do want to say, because you mentioned the damage dealers, they did say the coaching staff in that video that Suna is like the go-to tracer. Like, his tracer is insane.
And that makes no sense to me.
And they're going to build from that.
Have you guys seen his tracer? Like, I was watching it and I didn't think it was that great, but that was from like VODs from a while back because he had that time when he was playing for the Vancouver Titans. Anytime I saw him play for the Vancouver Titans, didn't think he was that great either.
Yeah. He didn't stand out like the same way Shockwave did when he came into that team.
No.
But when I'm giving us the benefit of the doubt here. I'm being quite reasonable, I think, in terms of.
But I could see them having him as a tracer specialist.
Right. Yeah.
Sure. I'm willing to wait and see because the Vancouver Titans was not in a good place when that team was put together.
Yeah.
Like, they had just been kind of shoved into the league and they were left.
They were in quite a similar position, though, to this team right here. I mean, it's as close as you can get. This team's going to be playing on high ping. They didn't have a large budget to be able to go through. They didn't have a large coaching staff to be able to really flesh the thing out. At least they've got some staff on board now.
There's similarities, for sure.
This team has not been set up to succeed. It's been kind of, it's the best you can do.
Well, I think the Vancouver situation was worse because
it was in the middle of the season.
It was in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
The team that was leaving was beloved. Not that the Paris team that went to Dallas was beloved. But what you saw with that Vancouver team was like they got second and they could easily like be a team that could win the league. I even think, with the new Dallas Fuel team, like I still don't know if that's a team that can win the league, that team as a whole.
Yeah.
I think if you're like, it's a little bit easier of a pill to swallow if you're like, hey, guess what? We've gone from a team that would have been, 4th or 5th in the world to, 10th or 11th, right? It's
that's
not like,
I think even that is way too optimistic.
They may even be lower than that, right?
Like, you're talking about a team like the previous Paris had times where, I mean, they were most of the time they were punting around the 3rd position when they actually got good in North America. What's I don't know, do we want to say like 6th, 5th, 6th overall in the world? You're going down to being in the probably bottom 4, bottom 5. Those are the normal expectations for Paris. Yeah. So you're going from like 5th to 15th. You're doing a flip of the table.
Have we seen more jumps, though, from the bottom to the top of the Overwatch League than from middle of the pack all the way up? I feel like we've seen more teams that have been that have gone this route and seen success rather than just stick it out with that middling team. Like obviously Shanghai just
both.
completely goes from
only seen
bad
Valiant,
to,
haven't we?
what do you mean?
I mean, Paris.
Guangzhou?
Nobody was hyping
Guangzhou
Paris
in that?
last year.
Paris was like
Paris?
bad.
Yeah.
Paris was bad and then became good by
Was
just
it
kind of using.
I can't even. The concept of time is lost these
I think
days. But was it last year or the previous year to that? Because no, it wasn't their inception year. It was the year when they came in and everyone was low on Paris. I mean, your power rankings were notorious for putting them at 17th.
Yeah, we had
people were ripping you to
down.
shreds.
Yeah, of course.
How could you forget that?
Yeah. I just totally forgot. Time is.
But like this is a format like we've seen other teams do, where it's like, you know, it's way worse to be. It's kind of like the argument we have with New York, right? It's way worse to kind of sit there in that 5th to 6th spot than to just go down to the bottom for a year, find like 2 or 3 really good young players, and then just add 2 or 3 really other good players you find, and then just go for it, right?
Yeah, and I think they have the perfect tools for it here because like
yes,
they have. Someone we haven't mentioned is J-Mac, who's going to be the assistant coach of this team, and like the only. Oh my god!
I mean, can you even understand what that is?
No,
they're at 15th, but I think there's some arrows there that might have them lower. So who the heck knows? By the way, this is what it looked like last year.
Oh, look at those eyebrows.
Look at that mess of a human.
Yeah,
an absolute ogre.
Not that different from this year. Honestly,
wow,
very similar.
Is that shot with the same camera, or is that a new camera we got?
A new camera.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
It looks modified.
I mean, Josh should pay for the new camera. If he looked like this with the old one, he should be paying for the new one.
Oh my god!
We recorded that in the upstairs bedroom of the old Philly house.
We did.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, I say we. I wasn't there for it. I didn't want to take part for some reason.
We did all 20 teams in one go. That was,
I think I may have gone
brutal
home,
day.
Actually.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
I wanted to say about J-Mac. Sorry, just to finish my point on J-Mac real quick. Just like I think we're talking a lot about these players that they have to take the next step up, or well, I am. But I think J-Mac as well. The only real like research we have on J-Mac as a coach was when he coached that team in North American Contenders, Dark Mode, and he like got popular for doing this like document where he just wrote down like a bunch of points about his players, like a huge Google document with like
20,000
coaching.
words.
On like individual players and just going ham. And I think to Matt's point, like you're in this position now where like you need to find 3 or 4 players that can carry you into next year. And I think you have like get Amaze who can like provide the big picture, kind of like bring the team together thing, and then you have J-Mac as a player coach, like huge, specializing in like ability usage, cooldown management, or that kind of stuff, right? And I think really that's what you're just trying to do, like find 3-4 gems on this team, and I think they have the potential to.
You're in player development mode right now. Like if they hit on like Naga, Onigod, and Khan, right? You have half of a team right there that you think you make the same kind of additions like you did to the Soon and the Ben Best and the Nikos of the world, and you're right back in the same type of position as you were with the original Paris.
No,
you're not. Yeah, I do
feel pretty good about them. I also feel like this team is one that could surprise. Like they could absolutely overperform people's expectations.
If things click,
yeah, and
a lot of things have to click, but
they do. Yeah, a lot of things have to go well for this team. And also, the other part to this as well is that them playing on ping, we have no idea how that's going to affect teams.
True.
We don't know whether that's going to be a massive hurdle for teams.
It might be very interesting, actually, in terms of...
Or maybe it won't make that much difference to results.
I think
it's impossible to tell.
It could affect the meta completely as well.
It could, yeah.
If Doomfist,
good luck playing Doom.
If Doomfist became a part of the meta, you just... In those particular matches where the ping was going to be equalized, you wouldn't be able to play Doom. The meta would change.
I think there's some like issues with ball as well on high ping, or like stuns too, and that kind of stuff. So it could be a bit of a different game. We really don't know. It'll just come down to watching it.
It's also a huge blow to like the mentality when you're playing, because like if you're a Widowmaker or like an Ashe and you're like, I hit that shot but it didn't register, or like it seemed like I hit it but there was delay, or like whatever, that kind of stuff. It's like playing soccer with a ball that doesn't have enough air, and it's just like demotivating because you're just like kicking the ball around and it's just like it's not doing what it's supposed to do. And it just affects the rest of your game.
I'll say this, a lot of EU players do just play on East Coast NA.
Sure.
Yeah.
Instead.
Yeah.
So
A lot of the NA players have started playing on career as well.
Yeah, just the ping difference. Overwatch is, how many times have we said this? But Overwatch's netcode is very good.
It is very good.
Very, very good.
The other point though that I wanted to bring up for Paris is not really one that sets expectations for them next year, but is one that I think is going to be important to their fans. Is that they have become a lot less French this year.
Mm-hmm.
They had the opportunity to re-sign Ben Best and Soon and Nico, even for like lower amounts of money, or like the competitive amounts of money, if you want to put it like that. And they chose not to. They chose to go with other people. They said that they signed. I think Dan tweeted about this, where he said the other players on the team and the coaches had the opportunity to sign Ben Best. I outperformed him. The other players wanted to play with me. The other players wanted to play with Dan instead. But at the end of the day, the French fans are going to be upset, I think, that the three pillars of French Overwatch are not on their team anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are a lot less French players in the league, and most of that is because Paris, the French team, has not signed them.
I think you had to look at this roster, though, and realistically say, with like a Naga and an Onigod, like, is Soon going to start over them for the next, 2-3 years, right? Like, is there a spot that you would play him at? Like,
Definitely
or do you
the
want
Tracer, I think.
Probably Tracer, but at
that
that
they
point,
do actually
like,
have a French Tracer, so French fans
but at
can't
that
be
point, you
mad.
may as well just give the playing time to some of the new younger players to get them into form faster.
You forget that Suna was French.
No, I just
No,
you also have dropped 2 French players.
Yeah.
So I think that is important. I mean, they have won. They've gone from having 4 to 1 because FD got left for the shock. So that is a big difference. I
also think the narrative still applies a little bit. Like they don't have strictly French players, but they're still like, hey, we're in Europe, like we're watching Overwatch League at like 2 a.m. and now we have like a European roster and we're coming to screw up the NA region. Like I still think there's some kind of mentality there.
Yeah, that is cool actually. If they lean heavily into that, I think that could be very good for their local fan base.
Overall, I'll finalize my thoughts on this. My expectations for this team are at the bottom, I think, for the kind of NA side of the league, I think. I think
it's rough, innit?
It's rough, yeah. But, I mean, the thing is, this team, the advantage they have over the Vancouver Titans from last year, the easiest comparison to make is comparing it to that team. But the advantage they have is that they've come in as a team early on. They're going to be practicing with each other, presumably right now. They're going to be getting used to the systems, the structure, the kind of feeling. They're not coming into this, I think, there's been almost enough of a break between last year and this year, such that they're not probably going to be coming into this thinking they have to live up to the Paris Eternal of the previous year, or at least I hope they won't.
No.
Which gives them a bit of a fresh start. There's also the advantage that they should be incredibly driven to perform. And Avala did quite a widespread trialing process, as far as I'm aware, in terms of determining this team. So it could be that these players were the diamonds in the rough. Like you said, I mean, Dan said that he outperformed Ben Best.
Yeah.
And so that is why he got the team spot. They wanted to play with Dan. This team, I think, could exceed the expectations, but where we should be expecting the bar should be at the bottom section of the league, and if they exceed that and make their way into the mid-table, that is fantastic for this team so far.
You would be ecstatic if you were them and you made the mid-table.
I think so. Yeah. As sad as that is to say, I mean, if the players or whatever, the staff watch this,
that's sad. Like, not everybody can win.
Not everyone can be a winner. You're right. Yeah. But I think you still, as a player, you want to be coming into this wanting to win as much as humanly possible.
Right. But I think you set your goals differently. You want to continue having a career in the Overwatch League next year. Yeah. That's what you're doing here. You're playing for your career and for like your reputation. You're playing to prove to everybody that you are an Overwatch League player and you deserve this spot. Yeah, that you belong. And that, I think, is so important for so many of these guys. Even for people that have had shots like Elevo before as well, has just been never able to play with his tank partner that actually worked out, has never been able to play on a team that was actually successful
as well, in my opinion.
No. And, same with Onigod. He joined a team that was shitting the bed at left, right, and center. Had to fill in for a guy that didn't want to play. Yep. It was a big problem for them. Neptuno got cast over to China because Philadelphia Fusion didn't want him. Wasn't able to play for visa issues. All of these guys have something to prove that is not just the team winning. It's for themselves. They want to be winning for themselves. I think that's going to make for an extremely driven team and one that can be happy if they make hey, if they make a semi-finals in one of the tournaments, they can be immensely happy.
Yeah.
If they make it deep at all, if they're able to get into the playoffs and go on a mini playoffs run and maybe knock like a good team out, all of these things are mega successful. Still a D tier team though overall.
Yeah. No, I mean,
way to bring it down.
No, but it is. It's a D tier team with a high ceiling. I think like they could be like if things go right, they could find themselves, mid table, making it interesting with teams here and there, and that would be an awesome year for them.
Yeah. Also, I think they've got some great natural rivalries. They have Vancouver to be able to contest with. They have London, the other European team, to have a rivalry with. Like, which can be the better European team? I think everyone at the moment is expecting London to be better because they dominated contenders. But Paris is like supposed to be a team that has been built to rival that success.
Yeah.
Like they didn't exist as a team in contenders. You can't tell me that you know how good they would have been in contenders because you didn't see them play.
Yeah. Trust me, it was very hard to find the VODs.
So it's the natural rivalries are just present and there, and I think they'll relish in them.
Yeah. I'm looking forward, honestly, and I don't mean that in like a bad way, like, oh, I'm looking forward to seeing this team. But like genuinely, the kind of driven aspects they've already just hammered home might just factor in with this team and make sure that our expectations are exceeded, which could very well happen. I think, cautiously optimistic, I think, with this D-ranked team, as weird as that is to say.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
And also, there's a special bonus here at the end. If you're able to not be the team that explodes, you will climb the rankings above the teams that do. So
that's a good point.
If you're a team that can just keep it together mentally and in the server, and you can just perform consistently over the course of the year, don't worry. There will be one team. No idea who it's going to be.
We don't know who it's going to be.
There will be a team that's supposed to be in the mid-table, and they go all the way to the bottom.
We have too many teams this year that expect to be very
not
good.
All of them, not all of them good.
That one of them will end up not being very good, and it will drive those players to be even worse than they probably are and down.
See, wow. I think you guys are being so optimistic, and I don't want to be the bad guy, but I'm like, I think this Paris could totally be that team because I think
they could be the exploding team.
No, not like explode as in Vancouver Titans, like we didn't get paid and slept on basement floors kind of thing, but like as in like I don't even know. I just said that shit out of my ass. I don't even know. Like I can't remember the article, but I'm saying that I don't think that like the org is gonna do anything. I don't even think there'll be like in-house fights or like anything like that. It might just be that like some of these guys just aren't able to live it up, and then you're stuck an entire regular season with some of those players. Like, what if Khan is not able to like become the flex support he needs to be? What if Dan is not able to play that main tank role good enough? What if Elevote is like good but not good enough? Because you have to keep in mind that some of these bottom teams in North America from last year have taken like massive steps up. Like it's not the Boston Uprising of last year. It's not the Washington Justice of last year. Toronto Defiant are improving. Houston Outlaws are making additions. Like it's tough. It's going to be very hard to win some of these matches against the other North American teams. So like if you are not able to find your groove or find some of this talent in some of these players and able to get some of those wins, it's a slippery slope real quick, especially when you're in this like player improvement kind of phase that we've said that Paris Eternal are in now. So, best case scenario, they could totally like get mid-table, fulfill this talent, like relish in those rivalries and like the coaching staff doing a great job. But worst case scenario, we have to keep in mind as well, like, some of these players might not be fit for the Overwatch League. So I think we have to, be realistic with ourselves.
That's why the bar
I think
is on the floor.
The bar's low. Yeah, the bar's low. And I think to what me and Josh are talking about, like, I think there's a better chance that teams with higher expectations explode. Like, I don't think this team is coming in with like crazy expectations.
That is one of the major advantages of this team coming in.
A team like, let's say Houston, right, where they expect to be way more competitive than they were. If they're not, like, that's a team that could like find themselves like, in an explosion type of scenario. I would also say with this many teams, like you mentioned, trying to level up, some of them are not going to level up, and then those players that are good on those teams are going to try and go elsewhere. Like if this team can show some signs of life and want like, hey, we have the 4 young promising players, like come be like one of the 2 additions, like look, we want to take these younger players and build with you for the future. Like this could be an enticing place for some of those players for the future, especially with a strong like coaching staff and managerial staff with Avala. So I think like I think organizationally and even like with this roster, like they're set up good long term. Like this year just maybe an ugly one potentially.
It's a bit like, I hate making these comparisons because some people are going to disagree, but it feels a bit like Florida Mayhem in 2019 when they made a bunch of like signings from contenders, and like it was rough, but like they made some signings from contenders and then they built on that roster, and suddenly you have this organization that has like great coaching staff, a personality, likable players, and like they have something going for themselves. And I think looking at Paris Eternal, it's a bit rough still because they're still in that early stage of like, we just picked up these players. But best case scenario, this could totally like become like that Florida Mayhem team that looked rougher on paper, but then the players just prove themselves and they just like flourish and become like a team of their own, really able to hold themselves.
I think there's a strong caveat to all of this that you're saying, though. And the caveat is that Florida did it because they had access to the enormous and incredible Korean talent pool of rookies coming in, which, if Paris limits themselves to Europe, is never something that they will have access to. I mean, there's no reason that they should only limit themselves to Europe, but if that's the direction of the team moving forward, you are never going to find a tank duo that's as good in Europe as the ones that are coming out of Korea. They just don't exist at the current moment, and they haven't existed for maybe even the past 2 years.
Sure, like finding a gargoyle might be a bit rough, but like
finding an
you saw what Florida Mayhem did with BQB and Chris. Like, but we didn't think too good of those players, but they were able to like take one step up, and then like, I mean, this is getting ridiculous, but like you could find someone like Yaki perhaps that is able to slot into a similar role, and like you got something going for yourself. Like just because it's bottom of the barrel at the beginning, like you can really build on that and improve, and I really believe in that. So I don't want to like dismiss this whole team, because I really do think that improvement is a real thing in the Overwatch League if you have the right attitude and a great coaching staff. And I think Paris Eternal this year are in the starting phase of maybe building something good.
Or like they'll just do exactly what they've already done. Is like after this season, like Avala could go to like some of the best players in Korean contenders and be like, hey, look, everybody doubted some of the players coming over to play with the European players that last time, and it turned out really well for them. Like we have a good setup here. We have players who have already been in the league. The expectations won't be like crazy for you to have to kind of live up to coming in straight away, and you can come in and make an impact, and we can make a run at this. Like I don't think this is an org that's going to like reinvent the wheel here. I think this is just a year where they add a bunch of more European players. Like the first year, they see what sticks, and then they go back to the talent pool and Korean contenders.
That wasn't worth waiting for.
Wow.
I'm excited to see where we actually rank. I'm excited to see where we actually rank these teams.
Yes.
Hello?
I don't know what happened.
What happened, Kurt?
Matt and Jonathan died.
Well, whatever. We'll end the episode here. Thanks for watching, everybody.
They can't hear us.
Plat, chat, Overwatch. We can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
we can't see.
Am I there?
Well, yeah, I don't know what's happened. Anyway, it doesn't matter. See you later, guys. Thanks for watching. Follow the Twitter. Leave a little comment. I don't know what the comment can be. Give us your best French impersonation in the comments. So you can use Google Translate for this. I'll let you cheat. Au revoir.